Hey everybody, hi, it's Liz from West Star Tarot. And today is January 20th, 2025. And here in the States, it's Martin Luther King Day. So I am going to start off with a Martin Luther King quote. I wanted to talk a little bit about my spiritual practices for the year, kind of a review, short one, of last year's practices and what I have coming up for this year. I've been wanting to make a video since the beginning of the year, so for 3 weeks now. But it's just like I have had so many ideas and so many thoughts, and I just didn't know where to start or how to narrow it down or what to focus on. So since today is Martin Luther King Day, I'm going to start off with a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. And this is from his Christmas sermon. And my daughter, who is now 34, used to read this sermon before we had dinner on Christmas every year for many, many years, at least 10, I would say. And when I think that these words were written and spoken in the mid-60s, it affirms, as always, that Martin Luther King was ahead of his time. I hope we catch up with him in the very near future. But here's the quote I wanted to talk about. It really boils down to this: all life is interrelated. We are all caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied together into a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. We are made to live together because of this interrelated structure of reality. So, I guess I'm thinking about the first sentence. It really boils down to this: all life is interrelated. So he didn't just say human life, he said all life. And so, as someone who practices the spirituality that I practice, I consider myself to be a wise woman, and I honor and revere the earth herself and all life on earth. And so I feel like Dr. King's quote, it boils down to this: all life is interrelated. And he doesn't even say all life on earth, he just says all life. So that's kind of interesting too. So anyway, last year I had a focus to my spiritual practice, and it was inspired by or represented by the Ace of Cups. And the spiritual practice that I was focusing on last year had to do with love, centering, happiness, joy, love, and loving kindness. And I had varying degrees of success with that. And I'm going to continue with that this year. I think it's needed now more than ever. And so that is something that I will be bringing from 2024 into 2025. And then sort of my word or my idea for my focus for my spiritual practice this year is community. And I was thinking along those lines anyway, but then when I read that Dr. King quote, I thought, right, interrelated network. That's a community, right? And there can be huge communities: the Earth community, the global community, the universal community, and there can be a community of my family or my neighborhood or my town or my tarot study group. I don't know. So there's all different kinds of community. And if we look at co-unity, right? I'm leaving out the M. But, you know, it to me reflects that idea of all life being interrelated. And what affects one affects all. And I know I hear a quote that goes something like, no one is free until everyone is free. So that's a piece of this whole idea of my spiritual practice, focusing on community. And so when I talk about this idea of my spiritual practice, I don't just mean my private, everyday, pulling my tarot card, creating sacred space, doing my little rituals. I mean that, yes, but I also mean how I am in the world, how I interact with others, how I support others, and how I interrelate with others on a small scale and on a large scale. And I think that's kind of interesting that I've chosen to focus on community when this is a Hermit year. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that as well. So if you take the numbers 2025 and reduce them to a single digit, you get 9, which of course is the Hermit card. This is the Hermit card from the Star Tarot by Kathy McClellan. And so I'm going to also be focusing on the Hermit. But focusing on the Hermit doesn't mean that I'm going to withdraw from interrelatedness, because what affects me directly affects the community indirectly, and how I interact spills out into the wider community. And so I'm seeing sort of an interesting relationship between the Hermit and community. I'm going to be using this. I just got this, so I got it about 3 weeks, just got it a couple days ago, into the year. And it's called The Year of the Hermit, A Guided Journal by Shannon Knight. And it's a workbook for a month-by-month workbook to work with the Hermit archetype throughout the year. So I'm going to be doing that as part of my spiritual practice. And a card that I pulled at the very beginning of might have been the end of 2024, but anyway, either the end of 2024 or the beginning of 2025 is this one called Ancestors, Generations. And I am in a group of, an online group of folks who are going to be doing ancestral connection work over this upcoming year. And I just thought it was interesting that I pulled this card at the beginning of the year just as sort of guidance. So I'm going to be using tarot as my method of connecting with my ancestors. And I have picked an ancestor to begin with. She is she is my grandfather's sister, and we have the same name, the same first and last, the same exact name, because neither one of us have middle names. And so that was sort of why I picked her. And that she's going to be my starting point. And I'm hoping then that she will lead me back, generations back. But we will see. And I'm going to be using this book by Nancy Hendrickson, Ancestral Tarot. I actually, so when I get a book, I put the date in the book of when I get it, and that way I can, well, for a number of reasons. Anyway, in this case, I got this in April of 2021. It's January of 2025, and I really have done nothing with this book. So in April, which is in a couple of months, it will be 4 years. So I'm hoping that by April this year, I will have actually started working with this book. So that's going to be part of my spiritual practice in 2025 as well. I'm also going to be reading and working with this book, The Charmer's Root by Roger Horn. And it's Witching Ways with Common Flora. And it talks about plants in a way that very closely resembles how I look at them as sentient, spiritual, knowing beings. And so I'm going to be using this book. It talks about plants in general, and then it talks about how it has a materia medica of plants, and talks about how we can use these plants in our magical spell work. So that is another thing. Am I getting to have too many things, people? And then just sort of as a side note, I've done this in the past, but this is the Wee Moon Journal. My sister gives it to me every year. And I have my own planner, so I don't use this as a planner, but I use it as kind of a gratitude journal or a goodness journal or a happiness journal. So what I try to do is every day I write down something fun or happy or joyful that happened, or something that I have gratitude for. And then when I look back on the year, I reflect on all these different things that brought me joy, that made me happy, that I'm grateful for. And it's kind of a nice sort of heart-opening practice that I can do. And as I said, I've been doing it for several years. So I decided at the beginning of the year, and I think this was on New Year's Day, to pick an animal ally to work with in 2025 and to keep out on my altar. I have different ways of connecting with animals, and I have different I'll change out animals as things happen to me over the course of a year. But I decided to use the Animal Spirit deck by Kim Krantz. And I sat down right over here, which is my little right in front of my altar. And I sat down there, and I had the deck out, and I was just about to shuffle the deck when I heard hoo-hoo, hoo-hoo, hoo-hoo. And I was like, is that an owl? And I do occasionally hear owls in you can see it's kind of woodsy. There's trees back there in my backyard. And I thought, oh, okay. So then I kind of sat in silence for a few minutes, and I didn't hear any more hooting. And I said, okay, owl, if you're stepping forward to be my animal ally for 2025, let me know. And immediately I heard, hoo-hoo, hoo-hoo, hoo-hoo. And so my animal ally for 2025 is owl. And I'm not going to say I chose owl. I'm going to say owl chose me, because of the synchronicity of just when I sat down with the deck to pull my animal card for 2025, owl spoke to me. And so owl is my animal. And I think it's interesting because this is the Hermit card that I have put out on my altar to represent the year of the Hermit. And owl plays predominantly in this card. In addition to the Hermit, the mountains, and the lantern with the star in it, the guiding light in it, I see owl. And so I do feel like there is a connection between owl and hermit. So that's sort of an interesting synchronicity. And then I had sort of forgotten this, but last year, at the beginning of the year, so at the beginning of 2024, I decided to consciously choose my tarot card for the year 2024. And I chose the Ace of Cups from the Superlunaris Tarot. It's a gorgeous card. Ace of Cups is one of my favorite tarot cards anyway, and the Ace of Cups from Superlunaris, sorry I didn't bring it out, is one of my favorite Ace of Cups. So I decided to choose that card. It kind of went along with my ideas for my spiritual practice, the whole idea of opening my heart and being more joyful and spreading love and loving kindness, I thought was a good match. And I left that card out on sort of a side altar for a good part of the year. And then summer rolled around, and I like to use that deck in the summer. So I took the card off the altar, put it back in the deck because I wanted to use the deck. And then kind of promptly forgot about that card being my card of the year. And this does often happen to me halfway or so through the year. I start to just kind of fall by my cards of the year, be it an animal, a goddess, a plant, a tarot card, whatever. I kind of lose sight of them as I don't know, live my life. I'm not sure why it happens. But I thought, all right, I don't want that to happen this year. So I'm going to, again, I decided to representationally choose a card as opposed to randomly pulling a card. And I chose, let me just mark here, this card. This is the Star card. And this card I am leaving out on my altar because it's actually a birthday card from my daughter last year on my birthday. This was my birthday card, so it's on really lovely cardstock, paper. And so she printed out the star card and then painted it and made it a birthday card for me. And so was very touched by that. I'm a star strength, and so star is one of my birth cards. But I can leave this card out on my altar without it being a problem for any of my tarot decks. So this and owl are in a card stand on my altar, and they will for all year. And I'm kind of excited about it. Star to me represents hope, healing after the tumultuousness and the crash of the tower. Now we leave the ruins of the tower behind, and we move to the star. And we see hope and healing and guidance in that card. And so we can move forward out of the ruins and the wreckage of the tower with this sense of a hope and healing in our hearts. And I think that's really pretty perfect for this year. I wanted to read from Radical Tarot by Charlie Claire Burgess about what Charlie has to say about the star card. Just a couple of sentences here, because there's actually like 5 pages. So midway through, Charlie says, let's see if I can. Hope is like water. It adapts to obstacles and flows past despair. When a person takes bold action, let me start that again. When a person takes a bold action of hope, it ripples. Hope is an openness so wide that, like the star's overturned pitchers, it pours itself out even as it is replenished. This is a radical openness, an openness to all possibilities, both good and bad. Because hope is not the assurance that nothing bad will happen. Rather, it is the knowledge the danger and tragedy are everywhere, and the determination to act on hope nonetheless. And I think about that in terms of our action that affects one directly, affects us all indirectly. And then Charlie goes on to say, open like the star person's body language, open like their vessels, open like the opposite of the tower's high stone walls, open like the fissures of a broken heart, open like the depths of longing, open like the smallest of holes that water will find to free itself from any vessel. Hope requires radical acceptance of what is, what was, and what might come. And hope drives us to fight for better. This is the star's openness, hope, and wisdom. And so I find that uplifting, but realistic. This is not a time to be Pollyanna. This is not the time to be Pollyanna. But it is also not the time to drown ourselves in the depths of despair. And so the star card for me symbolizes hope, healing, guidance, and yes, community, and opening our hearts to one another. And so I'm feeling really good about the card that I have chosen for 2025. And I just have a couple more things. So last year I mentioned at the end of my end of year video that what I started doing last year was I got myself, in addition to my tarot journal and my daily planner, I got a little, this is for 2025, I got a little planner. And so, and I have put owl. What I am doing is every day that I pull a card, which is pretty much every day, I miss a day here and there. What I'm doing is I'm writing down the deck that I pulled from, and in some cases also the cards that I pulled. So at the end of the year, this 2024, I went back and I could track the decks that I used and the decks that I used the most. And I could also look back and see the decks that I used very little or not at all. And, that tells us a story as well. So I'm doing that again this year. And this year I thought I would also, at least for tarot, write the cards that I pull. Because I usually pull 3 cards. Sometimes I'll do a little bit larger spread. But usually it's for daily guidance, I do a 3-card pull. And I could sort of track and see what cards follow me through this year. I found online a week ahead spread, and it was posted by Owl and Bones Tarot. And the spread is this. So it's a 3-card spread, and it's 1 card for let rest, 1 card for wake up, and the 3rd card is the mantra. So what do I want to rest this week? What do I want to wake up this week? And what is my mantra for the week? And I used Tarot Vintage, and I pulled for let rest, the wheel. And I interpreted that as let rest, worries about the future. And then for wake up, I pulled the Fool. And so I wrote for that, wake up, new beginnings, taking risks, leap of faith, fun and joy. And then my mantra is the 2 of Cups, love, love, love. And so that is where I will end, on a note of love, 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 the 2 of Cups. What do you think? What are some of your ideas for 2025? Do you have a card of the year, or spiritual practices, or ideas for your tarot practice? Community work, service to others, social activism. What are you planning for 2025? I think about January 1st. It's the Gregorian calendar, which is a patriarchal Christian way of tracking dates. And it's not what witches use. I personally think of the new year as coming with Aries 1. So at spring equinox, that's the new year for me, because seasonally, it just feels like that's the beginning of the year. But because I live in a culture that uses the Gregorian calendar, I do often mark that January 1st is the beginning and the time of change and invoking new practices. So anyway, Here are my lovely, beautiful cards for this year. Tell me about yours. I wish you all peace and love.